Back to guided reading, and we're now on lesson 16. In the last part of Cole's kingdom, Cole was kidnapped and he was in the back of a wagon and he was tied up, wanting to escape. Let's go back to that last paragraph. A dry breeze blew through the weave of the sack, so he can feel the wind through the sack that's over his head. So he was quite certain that the wagon was uncovered. He could simply throw himself over the side, but the kidnappers would be on him in seconds. Slowly he inched up, so that means he moved bit by bit against the wall of the wagon and felt along the side until he found a jagged nail sticking out of the wall. Easing his hands closer, he began to scrape his bindings up and down against the nail, loosening the rope. So imagine this. He has got his hands tied behind his back and he is rubbing the rope against the nail to try and escape. Cole was careful to time his scraping so that it was covered by their conversation. After missing the turning for the shortcut and the argument that followed, the pair moved on to the topic of food. "I'd love some fish stew for dinner," Piog mused. "You'll be lucky. It'll be hot grains and a bite of black bread, like always. I bet Mum could make a great fish stew with proper vegetables, green ones, I mean. You don't even know if you like fish. And potato salad with spring onions. How do you know what spring onions taste like? Fresh peas with butter melting on top and a sprig of mint." With his kidnappers distracted, it was easy to pick apart the rope with the rusty nail. With a final sharp tug, Cole's wrists were freed and he slid the sack off his head, but the glare of the maple-coloured sunset forced him to blink rapidly. So the sun is setting, it's evening. Maple-coloured, it's a golden sun. And he can't see because he's had his eyes covered and now he's looking at this bright sun. Cole looked up just in time to see that the forest had given way to a town of low, thatched buildings with candles glowing in the windows. The streets were almost deserted, but for a few people wandering aimlessly. "Here we are," Piog said, pulling up next to a decrepit timber-framed cottage. In spite of his bound ankles, Cole grabbed the side of the wagon and swung himself over. He landed with a thud onto the cobbled street, but there wasn't time to waste. He pulled himself upright and hopped away towards the line of trees at the edge of the town. "Hey!" one of the kidnappers yelled. "Come back here," said the other, thundering after him. "Get off me!" Cole protested as two pairs of arms grabbed him. He kicked and elbowed and was almost free when orange light spilled across the darkening street. "What are you doing?" yelled a silhouette from the doorway of a small cottage. A silhouette means it's like a shadow outline. So a silhouette, you can have a silhouette of anything. You can have a silhouette of a person, of an animal, of anything. So somebody is standing there with the light behind them and it's making a silhouette. The girl named Mika groaned. "Uh-oh, I didn't raise my children to behave like hooligans." "So a hooligan is a violent person," yelled the silhouette, who turned out to be a stout woman with a rolling pin held menacingly in her hand. So she has a rolling pin used to make pastry and pie in the kitchen, and she's menacingly holding it. That means threateningly. "But Mum, it's for a good cause," protested Mika. Cole looked up at the woman who was glowing in the light from the cottage windows. She was surprisingly short and stocky. So stocky means you're short and you're wide, and with very short hair and olive skin. Her face was flushed, so that means she's got a red face, and her green eyes were scrunched with determination. "It's for the resistance," Mika continued. Her voice trailed off nervously. The woman in the doorway threw up her hands. "How many times have I told you not to get yourselves involved with that lot?" Cole made an unsteady effort to rise to his feet, but with his ankles tied, he couldn't find his balance on the uneven ground and fell over. "Here," Piog said, untying the rope and holding out a hand to Cole. So let's think about this. Cole has been kidnapped by two people. Sounds like a boy and a girl. However, he's now met their mother, and their mother is angry that he has been kidnapped. She doesn't agree with him being kidnapped. So we now have 3 new characters in this story. We had the king, we had the wolf, but now Cole's been kidnapped. Now, there is a word there. Mika says it's for the resistance, and that gives you a clue. People have a resistance. If a country has been conquered and the people are fighting back, then we say it is a resistance. So this is giving me a clue that maybe the king is not as good as we thought at first, because why would there be a resistance? It sounds like they're fighting against him or the government. So we'll find out more next lesson, but let's take a look at some comprehension questions. Here we have an extract. Cole was grateful to time his scraping so that it was covered by their conversation. After missing the turning for the shortcut and the argument that followed, the pair moved on to the topic of food. Find and copy the word which tells us that there are 2 kidnappers. Press pause and write the answer. Which word, one word, tells us there are 2 kidnappers? So press pause. Okay, so the word is pair. And we have that word here. When the word pear is spelled P-E-A-R, sorry about the E there, that is a fruit. But when it's spelled P-A-I-R, it means 2. For example, a pair of socks. 2 socks. Next, in spite of his bound ankles, Cole grabbed the side of the wagon and swung himself over. He landed with a thud onto the cobbled street, but there wasn't time to waste. He pulled himself upright and hopped away towards the line of trees at the edge of town. Why did Cole hop rather than walk or run? Hop is like you're jumping like a frog. So why did he hop? Have a think. Press pause. Okay, it says here his bound ankles. Bound means tied together. When they kidnapped him, they tied his ankles together. So he can't run and he can't walk. He's having to hop and jump. So that's why he hopped rather than walked. Thanks for taking part in this lesson, and I will see you back for lesson 17, where we'll find out what happens next in Cole's Kingdom. Bye for